I'll admit, I was petrified. I was scared. But the more scared I felt, the more I felt I had to do it. Because in those moments of that sheer fear and like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. What if I fail? I kept having to remind myself, but what if you succeed?
Hey guys, it's Mike from 8 Time Online, and today we're joined by the one and only Tracie Fobes, who has sold her website for 6 figures and continues to teach people all about her blogging knowledge. So Tracie really is someone that is just so open and honest and down to earth with everything to do with blogging. She has kind of been through this path, this journey where she started, I didn't even ask her actually, but she started back in 2010 time, I would guess that sort of time, and kind of has built her blog up into, well, a six-figure business, and then she's actually sold it in October 2019 for over 6 figures. And what she's ended up doing, she never planned on selling her first website, or that website that she had. It was Penny Pinching Mum that she ended up selling. But what she has ended up doing is just acquiring so much knowledge about blogging, and she just shares it so openly and amazingly on her Facebook group, Blogger Education Network, and also her website, traciefobes.com. You can find out all that kind of information there. Now, again, it is quite a long chat, so if you want to just kind of skip to the end and get like the main points, I'll summarize my main takeaways from the chat in the last sort of 5 minutes or so. But if not, listen to this one, because she just walks you through so many useful tips that is just so useful to start and scale, and what happens during setbacks, because man, she's had some big setbacks and just got stronger and stronger from it. So enjoy this chat, guys. Cool. So Tracie, obviously your first site ended up being like quite a big success for you, and we were just kind of talking there and you were explaining some of that stuff, but I really want to know, I want to dig in a bit more about what happened when an affiliate site basically cut, was it everything that they cut? And it was about 75% of your income, I believe.
Yeah, it ended up being about 75% of my income almost overnight. And like everybody else, guys, it was Amazon. Amazon did it to me personally. I was making too much money. They were not seeing the profit margins they wanted. That's where this stuff comes from. And I think it's important we understand that this wasn't Amazon going, oh, we don't want to pay you. When those prices start dropping and there's such demand, their profit margins decrease and they operate on certain margins. And if they can't meet that, they have to find a way to cut. That happened to me. I was making killing on like more than $10,000 a month just from Amazon alone.
That's crazy.
And it was for the holidays. I was making $35,000 and $40,000 a month just from Amazon.
Wow! What year was this that this was happening?
This was about 2013, 2014, cool. Somewhere in there is when this all happened. And so I was rolling, and I thought this is so awesome. And I just kept promoting Amazon. You know, why would I worry about anybody else? Amazon's, bread and butter here. And then I got an email, and the email said, "Hold on." And the email said, telemarketers. The email said, well, we basically are not hitting our profit margins. And so we're going to basically take all these categories you are making money on, and you're not going to get paid at all. And categories is making 7 and 8%, zero overnight. And the other ones they dropped. Whereas everybody else could work up that tier, and the more you sold, you increased your percentage of affiliate income. I didn't get any of that. It like 75, 80% of my income gone virtually overnight. Well, within 2 weeks. They gave me a 2-week notice. And so I kind of went by just trying to figure, I could just roll with it. Like, okay, this is going to be okay. But it wasn't. And a few months later, I had built myself up to a staff of about 6 people. I had let 5 of them go.
Oh, man.
I had to stop paying myself so I could pay the person who was working for me, because I couldn't run everything myself. I knew I was virtually impossible for me to take care of everything that had to be done without some help. So I had to pay somebody else, and I had certain tools and things that we need to run our businesses. I couldn't change my hosting. I couldn't change a lot of things. And so I had to cover those expenses and ran really tight for a long time. And honestly, in that moment, I thought about quitting, but I didn't.
So did they give you a reason as to why they cut all of that?
They just said they weren't hitting their profit margins, that I was costing them too much money, which was kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay. But I was never, this gave me an example. It was toys was one of the things. And so toys I was making, I don't know, 4%, 5%, I don't even remember. And so they showed me what their profit margin was on a toy. And basically, because of the volume I was producing in those toys, their profit margin had diminished below where they needed to run as a company. And so because of my individual sales, because they were so excessive, it apparently lowered their profit margins. And so because they were paying me such a vast amount because I was selling such a huge volume of toys, they couldn't afford to pay me anymore. Which I know that sounds really weird when you say it like that, but I kind of get it because it was the volume. They were having to decrease their prices to be in line with like Walmart. Walmart runs on like very low profit margins, especially on things like toys, and especially around the holidays, right? You're dropping all those prices at Christmas because everybody wants toys for their kids. And because they were operating so low, Amazon, they just are having a hard time competing with that. So, and I just was like, sick to my stomach. I was mad. I'm still a little bitter when it comes to Amazon. I'm not going to deny that. But honestly, with everything that's happened, I saw the writing on the wall 6 years ago. Like, if they did this to me, they're going to do it to everybody else eventually. You wait, you see, everyone else is going to be going through what I'm going through right now. And I was right.
It's crazy. Well, I bet so many people, this is like, it's so on point right now for so many people because the exact same things pretty much just happened, but for everyone. Yes. But I just I couldn't get my head around it when they made all these cuts because in my head, it was kind of like, well, affiliate marketing, you're making them profit. So how can they possibly be like worried about them losing money or whatever? Or it just baffles me that they can say that you were costing them so much money. But I guess when you've actually said it like that, the low profit margins and stuff, it does kind of make sense. Yeah,
it does. It does. And it's like, I don't know. Who knows? I'm hoping maybe this could be a short-term thing for Amazon. But the little greedy monster Amazon seems to be, they're going to take those extra profits when things get back to normal, whatever normal happens to be, and whenever that happens for all of us. And I think they're going to run with it. But we could hope and pray that maybe they'll bring some of those back. And maybe this is a temporary setback with everything that's going on. And because of the mass volume and the shortage in products, I'm really not sure of all of that. Just again, because I'm not getting those emails now because I kind of kicked into the curb on my new site. I don't even use Amazon. So yeah, I don't know. Right. It's really interesting. It's, and that's I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but I have such empathy for everybody because I've been there. I know exactly how every single person feels. That pit in your stomach, that, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Or where do I turn? Or what do I do? Or should I quit blogging now because there's no sinking point? So I went through that range of emotions. It's like grief. The 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
We're all 5 stages of grief really with Amazon, and eventually we'll come to acceptance.
It's very true. Yeah. There's so much I want to dig into there, but this site was for was it Penny Pinching Mum? Is that this site?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was Penny Pinching Mom, and everything I did there was helping families save money. So obviously during the holiday season, everybody needs gifts for everybody on their list. So I did my best to help them find the really crazy low deals on all the toys and clothes and electronics and gadgets and everything that they wanted to have wrapped for Christmas. So that's why I did so well. And I thought I was doing great, and apparently I was doing too great.
So this is the same site as well that you have now sold, isn't it? Is that right?
Yep. The site that I nearly lost in like 2014, I sold for 6 figures.
That's crazy.
In October 2015. Yes.
Oh, that must be such a good feeling.
It really is, and I think it comes back to this, what do we do in those moments when our world is crumbling around us, and we can't control. I can't control Amazon. I can't control other people, but I can control myself. When that happened, I had to really analyze what was I doing and what mistakes had I made in my business. And, it really was my fault because I did not diversify. I did not find several income streams. I put all my eggs in the Amazon basket. So when the basket fell over and the eggs all cracked, I had no eggs left. So that's my fault. And I can't blame Amazon for my mistakes in running my business. So I kind of have to thank Amazon, which sounds really weird to say, but if they had not done that, they would not have forced me to pivot my business, find different revenue streams, different alternatives, grow that site to what it became, that a major company here in the States bought it for 6 figures. It's just crazy to me.
I don't know if you've heard or read the book called Antifragile. And it's basically exactly the point that you're making there, though. It's kind of, there's kind of almost 2 things that happen when bad things happen, because bad things happen in business all the time. There's overcoming problems and things like that. And some people just crack under the pressure, whereas some people sort of put a patch over it and like make it better for the short term. But then the whole point of Antifragile is exactly that. Like whenever something bad happens, you almost rebuild it in a way that's better and stronger. And so each time a problem happens, you're almost making this machine even better and stronger each time that's happening. It almost sounds like exactly what you've done with yours.
And that is exactly it, and it was kind of fun because I started challenging myself, and I'll admit I was petrified. I was scared. But the more scared I felt, the more I felt I had to do it, because in those moments of that sheer fear and like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. What if I fail? I kept having to remind myself, but what if you succeed? What's going to happen if you pull through on this and something good happens? Some of what I tried didn't work so well, but a lot of what I did was successful. And I ended up being able to carve myself a new path. And instead of it being one single path to income, that path all of a sudden had all of these veins and these little sub paths. And so I started finding different small ways to bring in that income. So I was not so heavily vested in that one source. And it forced me to make a course. It forced me into learning how to make printables. It forced me more into finding sponsored posts and have people pay me to be on my website. It pushed me to work on my SEO for traffic. So all of these little things came together to create this massively successful site that, again, I'm not sure would have happened had Amazon not done what they did to me.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So can we try and break down some of the nitty gritty, some of the actual things that you did? So obviously your income's been slashed overnight. You've gone from 6 members of staff down to 1 almost instantly. What was your first step? Were you looking for another affiliate products, or what was your very first thing that you did when that happened?
Okay, the first thing that I did is I looked to see where are people coming to my site right now. So I dug into my analytics and I saw which 10 posts are getting me traffic right now. And I looked at those and I tried to find other partners that I could add. And one of those, I think one was another blogger who had a product. And so I was selling their things. But then I looked at that after I thought about the products and I updated that. I started thinking about, you know what? I'm tired of relying on everybody else to pay me. I want to have my own thing that I can sell and I'm in control. So I analyzed each article to determine what product can I sell that people will want. And the funny thing was, the thing I created was a cash envelope template, which sounds so tiny and minuscule in the grand scheme. And it was like $3. That's all I sold the thing for. The thing sold like crazy. Every time I turned around, people were buying that silly little cash envelope because they needed it. It literally solved a problem. And they're like, oh, $3, I can do $3. All day long, they would buy it.
When you say cash envelope, you mean literally an envelope to put cash in?
An envelope, like a cash envelope.
Cool. Yeah.
Getting the paper money from the bank, putting it into an envelope, and that is how you spend. Because that was my whole journey, and the whole premise of how I blogged and my financial blog was that we did not use credit cards at all. We were a strict cash family. I didn't even use a debit card. I paid everything with paper and coin.
Wow.
Everything. And that was how we got ourselves out of debt, was by not using plastic at all and really owning our money by handing it over. And it became painful to hand over that $150 at the grocery store. So I thought twice about everything I put in the shopping cart.
Yeah.
So that was the whole premise of my site. So the cash envelope was the perfect fit for my reader because it was my premise. It was what I taught. It was my belief system. And that's why they were there. And I would go through that's why I did each blog post, and I tried to figure out what I could create. After I had a couple of printables and they started doing well, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go crazy with this. I started making printables for everything, and I opened a shop. And I started selling printables.
Wow.
Started making good money selling printables. I'm like, cool. Took printables, made a course. Started making good money on a course. So it just was one thing kind of led to another, but it really, truly started with that first blog post. The one article that people were coming to me above all others that I could find a product to create, and the rest was history.
So you've obviously gone down the whole product route and, creating your own products. And I've heard from so many different people the same thing. Even if you can just create something very small, it just adds this whole diversity to you. Like you're not reliant on affiliates anymore. You're not reliant on ads or whatever. All your other income it basically opens up a whole other stream. So I can see so much the benefits of doing that. But did you also look for affiliates at the same time? Were you trying to pick up those sort of things as well, or were you just completely focused now on product creation?
I did find some affiliates, but at the same time, I also realized Amazon, yes, they took away a lot of what I was earning, but Amazon still had conversions because there was such trust with Amazon that I was better earning a 2% commission on something that could potentially convert than linking to a site that maybe as many people don't click through on, or it's not as reliable, that might pay me 5%. So the reliability and trust factor was still there with Amazon. So I didn't completely eliminate them. I brought in a few other sites that people knew, like Walmart and Target, and those places where there still was that trust. I didn't go find mom and pop stores. I didn't go a lot of that because my readers, I knew, would not shop there. So I think it comes to that too. You have to know who your demographic is and what they're going to do. All of my people were frugal, and they are stretching every single penny as far as they can go. They are not going to go to a site and buy something that's going to charge them $7 shipping if they can go to Walmart, get it cheaper, and get free shipping. They just would never do it. And it kind of was almost, when I would find those, I felt like it was really ethical, if you will, for my site because of what I was preaching about lowest cost and lowest prices. I had to stay true to that. So yeah, I maybe switched a few things out, maybe with a few other partners, but in the niche I was in, there weren't a lot of strong affiliate partners out there that were going to pay me a lot. I still made good money with Amazon, not nearly what I was, but I still was making money because I got those conversions. So I think that's another thing people have to realize is don't go flush Amazon down the toilet, really. I mean, because that's really not going to help you because people trust Amazon. It's like they're going to shop there. So if they're going to shop there, you may as well put the link. I would rather make 1% than no percent. And that was kind of how my attitude came to be when it came to those links. But again, I did find a few partners and a few things I swapped out. But for the most part, I had to leave a lot of those links intact. And I kind of didn't abandon affiliate marketing, but I would add in new partners as I found them. And I really kind of pursued other revenue streams that made much more sense for my readership.
Okay, so you've obviously gone from that horrible stage where everything's been cut almost overnight, and then you've started putting a few products and things together. When did you find you were sort of getting the ball rolling again and getting back on track to where you were?
I think it was about 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
So it took me quite some time to build it back up, but I didn't quit and I didn't give up. I remember when I finally got to pay myself about 8 months in. So I went quite a while where I didn't really pay myself. Where I was paying myself like little, like very, very little, just because I'm a corporation and I had to for tax issues. So I had to be paying myself something. But yeah, it was quite a while. And then it was really funny. Then once that income was sustainable, because of that, I always have feared that. Ever since that happened, there's this part of me that's always worried that something's going to go away. So it always forced me to like, oh my gosh, if my product stops selling, I need something else. What can I do? Oh, if that stops working, I need something else. So honestly, my fear of losing it all again or something going away again, that is really what propelled me to find all these different revenue streams.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm guessing that's kind of when it led on to, getting more organic traffic. I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing you got a lot of your traffic from Pinterest around this time.
I did. I got a lot from Pinterest, but I was also invested some money. And it's just so funny. Here I'm broke, guys. And I still was investing money in my business, right? And was investing into learning SEO and improving my site because I knew the importance of that and knew that if I invested a few $100s in a course, that if I took everything and applied that, I could easily make that back tenfold by getting traffic to replace that, to pay for the investment. And so I made investments. But yeah, SEO was one of the next things that I tackled because I knew that I wasn't doing very well with that. And if I could get that organic traffic there, I knew the organic traffic would click on some of those links and those products and things. And even if they weren't going to buy what I was saying on Amazon, I was sort of tracking cookie. And so I kind of went into this cookie mindset. So I started working on that. Plus it was helping my products. But I built up that SEO to try to get more of that traffic, and my ad income end up exponentially. I mean, I was doing really well. I was doing that, $29, $30 CPM rate from my advertising network. So I was doing amazingly well once I learned how to properly SEO because the advertisers loved it. They loved where that traffic was coming from, and they knew there was value there.
Which ad network was that? I don't know if you can share.
I was at Thrive.
Oh, it's AdThrive. Oh, amazing. Yeah. I've heard that is like, Mediavine and then AdThrive's even better.
They're pretty much the same thing. I think when it comes to that, I always tell people to check because everyone's like, oh, Mediavine's better or, oh, AdThrive's better. They're not better. They're different.
Yeah.
And you really have to ask because the way that they approach things, number of ads, niche, all of that, there's so many factors that just ask before you just assume.
Yeah, I think it's just because what AdThrive is 100,000 page views, but Mediavine is 25,000 sessions.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which is basically a little bit different, but
yeah, it's a little bit different. So that was a big factor for me was that SEO traffic, and it really did make a difference. Mm-hmm. And then what's really cool is once that SEO traffic started coming in, I knew how to SEO. I started pivoting myself into sponsored work because I could use that SEO knowledge as a selling point in pitching potential sponsors who wanted to work with me. So I started making more money through sponsored work as well.
So you were becoming the sponsor. So is that as in you were writing content for someone else?
No, I was having companies work with me. So right. Dollar General is a great example. They worked with me for a year, and they would send me content, and they would pay me to write about something in their store. Go take pictures, do this stuff, and write about them on my site with the content that was going to help my readers. So Valentine's Day was coming around. People have to shop candy and cards and all that great Valentine's Day stuff they want. Well, Dollar General wanted to position themselves on a frugal blog about saving money that Dollar General's where to go to shop. So I went and shopped and took pictures and showed people, hey, look at what you can get at Dollar General and save money. So I would work with partners in that regard, and they would throw money at me to write about them.
Yeah, I've heard from some people about how good sponsors can be. I don't know if you know Kellen Klein.
Kellen and I are good friends. Yeah. So I was making, when I sold Penny Pinch and Mom, I was making 5 figures pretty much every single month with sponsored posts.
Wow. It's just, it's like a whole new avenue that is to me. Like, I know I've heard so many people mention it.
Yeah.
I've even heard other people call it something like brand ambassadorships and things like that,
Yes.
where I guess it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, brand ambassadorship tends to be a little different. That's where you are working with them and maybe a little different capacity. They have you tweet things and whatnot. Whereas a sponsorship is literally usually you write about that sponsor and you might do an ad campaign behind it. It's usually a bigger ad spend on a true sponsored post than a brand ambassadorship because I've done both. And my ambassadorships paid me usually a lot less than my sponsored work. The sponsored work was usually a one and done. You get an email and you would work on the post. You would shoot it out on your blog. You would put it on your social. You might do a newsletter blast. You might pay for a Facebook ad to boost the content, whatever you agreed to with the sponsor. You'd send them an invoice and you'd be finished.
Cool. Yeah, no, it makes sense. So you would prefer the sponsorship route then rather than... So my understanding, brand ambassadorship is more like a monthly fee that you get and you have to keep working and keep producing content for them. Yes. Sponsorship could just be literally one post.
Absolutely.
Done.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So every sponsorship is different. Like Dollar General is different. Their sponsorship covered a course of a year. And it was like every 2 months I was writing something for them. But it was written in a way that was treated like the sponsored post where there was significant value there. I mean, I was paid a lot of money to write these posts every 2 months. So it was just this consistent income that was coming in all the time. Gave me content ideas. I knew what to write about, which was great because a lot of times as bloggers, we struggle with what in the world am I going to write about this week? Well, if you have a sponsor and you know what you're going to write about, you don't think about it. It's basically written out for you. So it did help with that as well. But it's a really crazy concept to be paid excessive amounts of money to write an article on your own site. Plus ad income. So then I got the ad income on top of that. And then after so long, if there were links in that, I could transfer those links into my affiliate links so that I got paid up front. Then as that post kept going, I was getting the ad revenue and I swapped the links to affiliate links. So I got those links too.
That's amazing. I've never heard anyone put it so clearly. Like I've heard people talking about all that sort of stuff before, but I've never thought of it. You're actually kind of getting paid in 3 ways, aren't you? From one sponsorship. Absolutely. Awesome. There's so many things that I really want to dig into. Right. Something that you did mention was kind of like, I want to dig into more about how you actually built your team. So you said that you had 6 members of staff. You obviously lost 5. How do you decide? That must have been really painful for a start. But then how do you decide when to employ someone else? Because you must have been wary about all of that. You know what? The funny thing is, at that point forward, I only went with freelance 1099ers. I didn't bring anybody else on as a permanent team member because in the freelance spectrum, if I don't need you, it's not as painful. There's not that emotional attachment. I mean, there is, but there's not because she's not really working for me. They contract to several people. I'm just one of their contracts that they work with. And so we would do small tasks and everything that I did, I'd be like, okay, do this. And I would send that out and then I might wait a month and I'm like, okay, I want you to do this now. And so rather than giving them consistent work that they did week after week, it was just a task-based system, which made it a lot easier. So if I didn't have the funds for them to do something, I didn't have to worry about, I can't pay you this week. I don't have any work. They were literally waiting for me to say, hey, I have this. Oh, can you do that? It just worked a lot better. Kept that relationship, kept me having the people I needed to help me without the stress of making sure that they had work to do week after week. That still sounds really, for me, that still sounds really complicated. And it sounds almost like more work in some ways, because does that mean, I'm guessing you had your certain freelance workers that do you have to train them up? Or how do you make sure that they're doing the right thing? I used a group on Facebook and I looked for people specifically
that were in my niche that understood my terminology and what I was looking for. And I would interview people and I did testimonials. And so then I had a list of 2 to 3 different freelancers that I had interviewed that we agreed that they could work on individual tasks. So I could shoot something over and say, hey, I need you to work on this database for me. And they knew what I meant because they had done it before at other sites. So I was very specific with the freelancers that I used because I wanted to make sure they understood terminology and how this type of website was run. And it made it a lot simpler. But I also took the time and created a Trello workflow for my business. And I had a place that had like all of my graphics in it. I started recording how to do different things. And so if I brought somebody new in, I could just shoot them that card from the Trello board and like, here's how you do it, dink. And so everything was pre-recorded and pre-written out. So, and I had done that all along. I'd always taught in that method that as I had to teach somebody, I would write it because I always said, if this person quits, I sure as heck do not want to have to go through this whole hassle of trying to show somebody else how to do this. So it was all written out. I didn't record too much, but I did text and I would shoot them the text. I'm like, here's how you do it. So I was planned ahead, which is really funny when I look at it because I had no idea how much I would need that in the future. It's just something in me must have just decided that, it would be really smart if you wrote this stuff down.
So you hadn't heard that from anyone else? That was just all off the top. You just thought, that was all, probably should.
Something that I came up with. I was like, it just would make sense because I just think it's a good thing to have. I had done the type of thing in jobs I had. I would go into positions and there would be I went to this one position and handled payroll for a large company and there was no manual on how to do it. And when they were training me, I'm like writing all these notes. I'm like, why is there no manual? And she's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, I am writing a manual. And it was a company based in Secaucus, New Jersey, and they had about 10 locations around the country, and it was a temp agency. So we did a lot of payroll. And every location did the same thing where nobody knew what they were doing. Well, I ended up putting it in writing. My manager loved it so much that he submitted it to the CEO, and the company adopted it and reproduced it, and it became the standard for their entire corporation on how to do payroll because it was written out. And so I think that whole thing came to me and like, you know what, everybody needs to know how to do this. So I was just prepared, not knowing what I was preparing for.
Yeah, no, it does make perfect sense, doesn't it? I don't know why everyone doesn't always do that anyway, but
yeah.
Can you give some like examples of like what you would get a freelancer to do? Because I've spoken to some people like, I need to outsource stuff, but I don't know what to outsource. So what would you say is like the first stage to outsource?
The first thing I outsourced was my social media management. Okay. I did not have time to monitor my group. I did not have time to take care of my page. I was like, I can't. And so I found somebody who got my voice, understood what I was looking for, and they went in and they took care of everything. I had to rarely show up to social. I did show up because that's just who I am, but it was great that they were taking care of questions, comments, they were scheduling all my content and taking care of that. Then I turned and I hired a Pinterest manager because I knew Pinterest was important. And although I fully understand Pinterest and I know the nitty gritty of it, I just didn't have time to do it. So it wasn't an issue of, I don't want to learn Pinterest, I'll just hand it off. No, I learned Pinterest and then I handed it off to the right partner who understood what I needed to have done.
I've got to say, just on that point, I've heard someone exactly doing that who didn't understand Pinterest, not even someone, this is multiple people that you even see on Facebook groups and things like that, where they're like, I'm so confused, I've handed it off to a Pinterest manager, someone to do my Pinterest and it's still not working. It's like, well, you can tell where the problem is. Like you just said, you knew what to do. You were telling them what to do. It's completely different to just going, please fix my Pinterest and like get me loads of traffic. I think they're two completely different things.
Absolutely. I think education is so smart. And before you ever can hire somebody to do anything, you need to understand it. Pinterest, I see people who say they want to hire out their SEO. Well, that's fine, but you need to understand SEO because how can you monitor and measure your ROI? And if they are doing the right things, if you don't even know what those measures and those stats need to be trying to hit. So yes, we have to understand before we can hire that out. But yeah, that was one of the next things that I went with was getting Pinterest. And so I had somebody who did that. I would have, I did a lot of like lists and things around holidays with, again, shopping and whatnot. So I would have people create those for me. I would have them make my databases. I would have them research the deals and the different things that I needed. I had somebody who would check my email, and I would just only have to address the emails that were specific to me. So it really helped a lot, because then I was able to focus strictly on that content creation and that SEO, and then working on developing the products. I even contracted out my printables being made at first, because I didn't have time to make printables for my site. So for me, it was worth paying a couple $100s to have that made, because I easily made that $200 back when I had a good quality product to sell.
Yeah, no, that does make sense, actually. The next bit that I really want to get into as well is there's almost like this stages that you've been through. And so I think it would be just, I know a lot of people have spoken as well about potentially selling their blog at some stage. And again, it's almost like this big scary thing of like, how on earth am I going to do that? And how much do I sell it for? Where do I sell it? And that sort of stuff. And I'd love to get your insight into what you actually went through to sell yours.
Absolutely. So through that whole learning process and rebuilding everything, the one thing that never changed with me was this feeling that I had always been alone. Even when I first started, I would reach out to people and say, how did you make a drop-down menu on Blogger? This tells you how long I've been blogging. And no one would help me. Or how did you add this little thing to your sidebar? Or how did you change that font? And no one would help. And I would spend countless hours researching and breaking my site more times than I care to count, staying up late, probably tears like crazy because I would get so mad and frustrated. But I figured it out, because I'm just like a dog with a bone. And I kept thinking there's got to be some people to help, and I just never forgot that. And when I through this rebuilding thing, I'm like, I wish somebody would have been here to help me and tell me not to go down this path so I didn't make this mistake. And so I just kept keeping all these things in my mind. And I was in a bunch of Facebook groups, and I just started randomly answering questions. And people are like, can you teach me how to blog? And I'm like, I'm not a blog coach. No way. I'm not going to do that. And I kept getting more questions. So I'm like, fine. I threw up a website, just called it my name, put a few things on it. And I was like, all right, whatever. And I just kept going, and I kept getting more questions. And the more I would answer questions, the more I'm like, this is what I like. I'm loving this. I'm liking that I get to share the don't do what I did things and the do this instead, so that you don't have to live the nightmare that I lived. And so I kind of started getting more into coaching. And so about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I just was like, I don't know if I can keep Penny Pension Mom. I don't know what to do with it. It's making me really good money. It's doing its own thing on the side. I'm not really doing much there. But I'm like, I don't just want to close it. So I just kept on, and I just kept thinking something will happen someday. And I mentioned at FinCon one time to a friend, I'm like, yeah, I might sell it. I don't know. And he emailed me in July, and he's like, hey, do you remember that conversation we had at FinCon like 2 years ago? And you said, hey, I might want to sell my site. I think I know somebody who might be interested. Would you like me to share your information? I was like, sure, why not? Turns out it was the Motley Fool. And they created a subdivision called Soapbox and reached out, and they were not collecting, it's not really the word I want, building up this whole network of personal finance blogs that they were going to control to hit different markets and connect with different types of readership. And all of our communication, our negotiations went through. I was the second blog they purchased, and that happened in October of 2019. But the whole process was pretty simple. They had a price they wanted. I had a price I wanted, and we were pretty close. And for anybody who's wondering, basically, it was about 2 times my gross income.
So 2 times your annual gross? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, between 2 to 3 times my annual gross is what they offered.
Oh, well, yeah. So I've heard 30 times, I think 30 times like monthly or something.
Yeah, 5 times off your net or different things. But this is what our experience ended up being. They went off of the gross income because they knew there were expenses involved in that. But I had to provide tax returns. I had to provide detailed financial statements so they could see every penny I was spending. I had to give them access to every bit of my analytics. They could see traffic, clicks, all of that. They got access to Pinterest. I gave them access to my Facebook analytics. So I literally created this open window to give them a complete look at to what they were getting. And once they saw all of that and built those numbers in, and we negotiated all of that, then we signed the contract in October, and they took over. And the funniest thing of all is that now I am a freelance writer for the website that I sold.
No way.
I still write for them from time to time, and I get paid to write on the website.
That's brilliant. Oh, that's so cool. That Motley Fool is a big name as well. So that's amazing. I think that's kind of says it all, though, doesn't it? Really, it's your network that has managed to get you that opportunity. It's not going on to I can't remember, Flipper or something, or
Flippa,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's Flippa, and there's another one. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Yeah, did not go to those sites, and I never went there initially because the site was too important to me, and I just didn't want some random person to buy it and tear it apart, or to destroy what I have built up. And so that was a big issue for me. And so when they approached me, I knew what they were looking for. I knew that they were smart. Their objective was not to tear this apart, but to build it up into something better, something I wanted it to be, but I did not have the time to do it. So for me, it was great to kind of hand over the reins and say, hey, you run with this. You can take it from here. I've taken it this far. Let's see how far you can go.
Yeah, no, that must be so cool. Like it's almost like handing your baby off to the real world, isn't it?
I ask people, like, would you ever do that? And they're like, oh, I would never sell. And I'm like, don't say never. That was me. Back in 2011, 2012, people were talking about selling. I'm like, I could never sell my site.
Yeah.
Things change.
Well, obviously, you've kind of touched on what you are doing now. And I do want to know a little bit more about that. But just before we get there, are there any like tools and training or anything that you'd highly recommend people, or something that you've done that you'd recommend other people do? Or is there anything that you think is a must?
I think that it's really, really important to invest in your SEO knowledge. That is probably the number one thing that changed for me, was taking the time to learn how to properly SEO my content. And that was a course. I bought Stupid Simple SEO,
cool.
My Pearson's course, and it's amazing. And I took that, and it really pivoted everything that I was doing from an SEO standpoint. And I would also say that I would follow the smart people blogging, like Amy Porterfield, Pat Flynn, some of those people, because they understand blogging from a business standpoint. Because when you first start out, blogging is a hobby, and you're having fun with it. But there comes a point where it shifts into a business. When you start making serious income and the money's starting to come in, you can't just look at it as, oh, I'm making $1,000 a month. This is fun. No, it becomes a business, and you need to have a business mindset. And so following the smart people in the business of blogging is going to help you immensely.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Is that as well just for like, the nitty gritty of businesses, like setting up your tax and all that sort of stuff? Are they the best people to go and look at, would you say? Or
no, when it comes to tax things, you have to visit with a local CPA because everybody's tax situation is different. Even I'm here in Kansas City, and there are people in Kansas City who blog, and all of us have a different tax issue. So you've got to visit directly with your CPA to see what type of tax liabilities you have, if there needs to be a specific corporate structure, because you could potentially want to form an LLC. That's what I ended up doing. We did an LLC, and I have an S-Corp filing. So I'm an employee of my company, as well as the CEO. So there's people you have to get involved. Attorneys and CPAs. Do not turn to just people online, because I'm here to tell you that if you do something wrong on your taxes, telling the auditor, oh, well, I got it from a Facebook group, is not going to fly. So make sure that you are getting professional advice on those issues, and do not even go to Facebook and ask a question. Literally get a CPA, get an attorney. It'll be money very, very well spent.
Cool. Yeah, that's great advice. So basically now you are more provide, well, your Facebook group's amazing. And you've got obviously your own blog where you offer coaching services, I believe.
Yes.
Is that to anyone? Like, can anyone just contact you? And
Absolutely. Yeah. So all of my coaching, there's different plans because I get budgets. And that's the one thing I think that kind of sets me apart is I see all these coaching plans and they're like, sign up for coaching for $500 for 30 minutes kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, no, you don't have that much money. So I try to keep everything where it's affordable for the people who need my help. Because again, it comes back to this whole understanding of being new to blogging or just wanting help and not having hundreds and thousands of dollars to invest. And so everything that I do helps, whether somebody's just sitting down today going, hey, I think I want to blog, or I've been blogging for 9 years, I don't know what I'm doing. I have one of my clients, we just met a couple of weeks ago, and that was her situation. She's been blogging for 9 years and has seen no money. We sat down, we figured out a lot of her problems. We're pivoting. She's making changes and starting to put systems into place to turn a non-profitable blog into a profitable one. So it's really to help anybody because there's nothing more exciting to me than when somebody comes and like, hey, I finally got approved for Mediavine. I've been blogging for 6 months. So it's exciting when I see that growth. But yeah, it's literally, I'm not here just for the high-end blogger or the brand new blogger. You know, I have 11 years of blogging experience that I'm an open book. You ask me a question and I'm going to word vomit all over you and you're going to have lots of ideas to run with.
Awesome. You can just hear your passion for it as well, which is so cool. I just love speaking to people that are so like passionate about it and, you know, have such a cool story as well. It's really, really cool. But, one thing I do always ask someone towards the end of a podcast is if they were to go back in time and with all the knowledge that you have now, so I want to try and get a good time. I normally go before you even started blogging, but I think the obvious one for you would be just when Amazon has sent you that email. If you could go back to that day where you picked up the email and you're like, oh my word, like, this is my whole business completely destroyed from one email, what would be just one piece of advice that you could give to yourself with everything that you know now?
That you can do this. You're smarter and more determined than you realize. And if you can just keep your focus and not, get distracted by the noise, you're going to pull through. That this is one blip on the radar. And one company does not get the right to dictate your success or your failure. Only you can do that.
Brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Tracie. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. And I think, I've learned heaps just from this little chat. So I hope other people have as well.
This was great. I appreciate you having me on today. And if I've inspired one person to realize that don't give up, then this was well worth it.
So there's so much to unpack in that chat. It is unreal. There's just so many little bits of tips and wise words from Tracie throughout the whole thing. And it's just amazing at how someone completely normal, had no kind of skill or knowledge of how to do this sort of stuff, has just created this multi-six-figure business over time just from hard work and determination and just not giving up, which she could have easily given up with the setbacks she had. But anyway, my 5 key takeaways from this chat, and hopefully it can help summarize and help you as well, is number 1 is that setbacks can make you stronger. Now, I know Amazon affiliates, Amazon associates has just slashed so much of their affiliate income, and so many people have been hurt by this. But I mean, Tracie's story is even worse than what Amazon has just basically done, and it was only to her, which I didn't even know that they could do. It's crazy when you actually think about it. She was making too much money from Amazon. That was the issue. That setback, though, she realized it made her business stronger. She found new ways to make income, and she wasn't solely reliant on one thing. So yes, these setbacks can feel really hard and really hard to take when you've built something over time and then that happens and it destroys your income. But it can be a great way to actually make your business become stronger, find new ways to make an income and do better over time. Number 2 is that I think this is a really important one, and you might not have picked up on this, but always write down tasks that you do. So it doesn't matter. What I've started actually doing is I just use an app on the computer, just type in something like time tracking app. I think it's called Clockify, the one I use. Every time, so even right now, it is running in the background and it's telling me how long I'm spending on a certain task. But then what you can do as well is just start like bullet pointing, whether you use Trello or Asana or one of those kind of platforms to write it out. Or if you just want to write a list in a notepad, it doesn't really matter. Just make sure that you're actually writing out the tasks that you are doing. It might seem petty or silly if you're still quite new to blogging, but it can save so much time later. And particularly when you come to do a task, even just things like writing a blog post, having a checklist of what you do before you write it, what you do during you write it, and what you do after. So, even when you publish it, do you post it on Facebook? Do you send it to Google Search Console? Do you post it on Twitter? What do you do? And just put these checkpoints in place. The more that you can do that with everything, so even from answering emails and things like that, the easier it's going to be to hire people later on. And believe me, you will want to do that at some stage. Number 3 is understanding your audience. And she spoke about how she found sponsors and better affiliate, when she got all of that Amazon affiliate cut and thing back in 2013, she found affiliates that were relevant to her audience. She could have just gone and slapped up a load of affiliate links that pay her really well, whatever, but it wouldn't have related to her audience. She understood that her audience were all about saving money, budgeting. If she started putting on these toys that cost a fortune, it just isn't going to relate to them. They're not going to click on it. She's not going to get any affiliate commission. She's not helping her audience. So by understanding her audience, it really helped her during that time. Number 4 and 5 are kind of linked. So, number 5, first of all, is network. And if you listen to that chat, you can see how important her network was for when she sold her website. She didn't go through those standard like flipper.com and things like that. She actually had someone when she went to FinCon who said, look, I've got this person from a pretty big site, Motley Fool, that can potentially wants to buy your website. And that is something that, just by having the network, that really helps. But also it helps for finding writers. And that is number 4, is using Facebook groups. And Tracie has a really good Facebook group, Blogger Education Network. Just type that in on Facebook. It's so open and honest, and there's so many people on there that are willing to help. And there's so many of these Facebook groups and things like that. And just by interacting with them, you don't have to, even if you don't feel like you have anything to give, you might have questions that you want to ask. And just by being a bit more present in there, you will start to make and build relationships with other people, other bloggers that might be in a very similar situation to you. They might be way ahead of you, but either way, you're starting to build those relationships and build those networks. And that can really help for finding freelance work rather than going to fiverr.com and things like that. And so those 5 key things I think were huge from that chat and can help anyone no matter what stage you're at. So I really do hope that chat helped, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening in to this episode of Make Time Online. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review for our podcast in the App Store. Keep changing for the better, guys. Take care.